So let's go further with hierarchical queries and look at some simple examples. Well, this is a simple example, and the next one is a little bit more complicated, or if you like, more comprehensive. So as you recall, we had the category table in the music schema, which is essentially a self-join. Let's go back out here. Here's my category table, and here's the data in that table. Concerts, null parents up the top. In other words, these four categories here do not have parents. Everything else is assigned to one of these parents, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Category ID 1, 2, 3, and 4. Category ID 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the parent column. That's a hierarchical structure. It's a single level. So prior applies to the category ID and connects the category ID to the parent ID. So run this, and we get basically alternative rock is connected to parent ID 1, world music, parent ID 1. And let's take, for instance, baseball is parent ID 2. So let's go back to this query again. And if we look for baseball, which is probably, we should have sorted it, baseball is in category 2. So all the prior is doing is connecting child to parent and putting the data on the same row. So now let's match the names together. In this rather complicated subquery setup, category query, and run this one, connect by those two, using the IDs that have been found, connecting with IDs, because those are the connection values, we actually find the subquery or a self-join on category and category. We could have done that as a self-join using the join clause as opposed to a semi-join. I just chose to do it like that. Here you can see arts and theatre include ballet and dance, classical opera, museums, theatre, blah 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 blah. If we go all the way down to here, we find sports, we will find baseball. So now let's demonstrate a real hierarchy using some family tree data. If you remember the previous example, we had the family tree for the Ford family. So I'm going to create a table. I don't need to drop it because it's already there. That's just my script. I create the table with the name, the birth and death of the person, and the father and the mother, and two references, one to the father and one to the mother. So I run this query here. Well, this create table statement. It tells me the table's already there because I've been testing. So I will run the drop, and I'll run the create to create this again. Family tree table dropped and created. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the actual data. As you can see, it's the same names that we had earlier. Items of data that we don't have, we will not add. So for instance, if we look at the data, birth, death, father, mother, in our data, Rebecca Jennings lived from 1776 to 1851. She did have a father and mother, obviously, but we're not adding it into our database, so we enter null values. So I'm going to run all these statements, and it should run all the inserts and give me a committed result at the end. Now I'm going to connect the name of the person added, such as William Ford I, or let's find someone with a parent. John Ford I, or John Ford, has father William Ford I and mother Rebecca Jennings. So we're going to connect him with his father or his mother. Obviously not both at the same time with this. So let's run this query here. And as you can see, William Ford, well, that's interesting. We're starting with William Ford I, and according to this, William Ford doesn't have a parent in our database. John Ford, his parent, his father is William Ford I. Obviously, if we started with William Ford I and we put a level in as well, it would make it a little bit more interesting. And I've highlighted this section here, and what SQL developers tried to do is actually execute this piece of query, which obviously is incorrect. I either have to do this, or I click without highlighting and press the play button, and it'll go up to the character termination, or the command termination, which is that little goodie there. And as you can see now, William Ford I is level 1. John Ford is level 2 because William Ford I is his father. And actually, William Ford II, his father is John Ford, so he's level 3, and so on and so forth. So you can see multiple levels of hierarchical data in action here. Here's another query, and as opposed to starting with William Ford I, we've gone a little bit further down the tree, and now we've started with John Ford I, and William Ford I as John Ford's father with no father of his own, which he did have, but it's not in our database. William Ford I is not appearing in our query. And that's the end of our simple script, and I've made a slight change to this script, so I'm going to copy and paste it back into the file that I will give you that you can use yourself. And what we did was hold on a second. Yes, we've got the entire thing here. So we've got the category queries and the basic family tree.